Okay, because both of them came on the same day and two videos probably would be too short, we're going to combine The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch into one review today, so stay tuned. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and we start with The Mandalorian. Last we left them, IG-11 was on the operating table and they needed a part. And so what was going to happen was that Mando was going to take along Grogu and they were going to go and find a part. That would be the big quest to find the part. I figured that would be about half of the series, where the other half is where he's going to the waters of Mandalore. However, that's not the case. He goes to Tatooine, where we see once again Peli Motto, played by Amy Sedaris. I can't see enough of her, honestly. And once again, she is in good form there. And instead, saying, pretty basically, no, we're not going to find parts for this thing, but I do have this R5 unit, R5D4, which looks like the same droid that was used in A New Hope, where it blew its motivator on the way to the Lars farm and replaced by R2D2. So here's the opportunity for this droid to prove itself, although it seems to be somewhat cowardly and certainly even after a blown motivator, the new motivator didn't seem to be too motivating. Nevertheless, he takes it and forgets about IG-11 as far as we can tell. And Peli says, well, I can modify your ship where he can sit back in that place where the dome was, and he can also be a co-pilot. Now, that is interesting because, of course, this brings into force Chekhov's gun. If you introduce a gun in Scene 1, it's going to be used by Scene 4. And there are two instances of that in this episode. First of all, there is going to be a need for R5D4 to pilot the ship, and also at the same point, which is also necessary, Mando tells Grogu how he navigates the ship and shows on the scope all of the planets in the system and points to the one on the scope in which our friend Bo-Katan lives. So, of course, when Mando gets ultimately captured, he sends off Grogu to go and fetch Bo-Katan, who he is able to return to the ship and then tell the droid by pointing at the planet he wants on the scope, so the droid can fly the ship and take it to Bo-Katan. And, of course, he doesn't really have to say many words, although it seems that Peli thinks that he said something to her, and he used a force trick to jump out of the ship and into her waiting arms. So that's one of those things. What we see here, though, is the ability for Grogu to be more independent than he was. He's more of a partner now than just a responsibility for the Mandalorian. And we also see something about Bo-Katan's capabilities. She, of course, is a member of the royal family. She was the ruling family of Mandalore before it was torn up. And you can see the sadness in her face as they return to the subterranean city that does have, it looks like it's been abandoned for years and years, which it has. And, of course, she does not believe in the whole idea of the magic waters, the living waters that Mando is going to immerse himself in and say the verses that he has memorized and then be cleansed from having made the cardinal sin of removing his helmet. But when he gets into the waters, of course, he is pulled down by the Mythosaurus. It seems that perhaps that purification of the Mandalorians wasn't necessarily purification, it was just drowning. And in fact, in the flashback that they had earlier, where they have a child who's giving the promise never to remove his helmet, they're attacked by some kind of creature there. They love to put in creatures in Star Wars, and this one I read elsewhere is called a Mythosaurus, and this Mythosaurus apparently is something that's going to have to be dealt with sooner or later, and that may be more of the continuing story than anything else at this point. But we see a different kind of story than we've seen before. Everything up to now has been just kind of establishing the characters, and now what we have is the great quest. And the great quest, of course, is for the Mandalorian to redeem himself and either realize that it was all just legend and ritual and kind of back away from this ultra-Orthodox stance that he has. And you have Bo-Katan at the same time, who perhaps has found herself wrong in a couple of points, and maybe she will come around to saying, well, maybe there was something to the legends and to the myth and to the pageantry of it all. She certainly considered it pageantry when she was in the working royal family, where they used this in order to maintain a sense of identity. So it'll be interesting how the two of them work together, being of quite different orientations, interestingly. They're both very solid Mandalorians, one of them being of the cult, and one of them being kind of a non-believer. And but they have more in common than they have apart from each other. So it should be interesting how they do that, and whether IG-11 comes back into it or not. I somehow think that maybe he will, but it's likely to not be as well. Interesting, the droid spider that then gets out with another droid spider, and then the helmet comes off, and it's a spider kind of thing. Of course, we have spacesuits, and they look like us, so you could take a person out of the spacesuit and look like there's somebody standing there. So it makes some sense structurally that that's what the creature would look like. We don't know exactly what its intent is, but I don't know that we've absolutely seen the last of it. Every time that they thought they'd killed it, it had an eye open and being in something else. This last time looks like they may have gotten it, but I'm not so certain about that. I think that there are more things to be found on Mandalore than they were expecting, as they have already. Okay, so that's the Mandalorian and the Bad Batch. We have a story just about Crosshair. We don't see any of the other batch, but we do see Crosshair in his working along with Republic forces. And he is given a new assignment and a new commanding officer, a lieutenant who is not named, but is fairly nasty and does not care for clones at all. He considers them to be equipment and certainly expendable. And when they arrive at this outpost, the name of the episode is The Outpost. When they arrive at the outpost, they are supposed to be guarding some kind of cargo. And they do have raiders in there, and the commander in charge, who is also a clone, therefore not really respected by the lieutenant who comes in and says, I'm taking over. The Empire wants this place guarded and safe and all of that. He comes in with a whole mess of stormtroopers and Crosshair, and considers that the cargo is all important. Now, our commander, whose name is Mayday, has not been terribly curious as to what was in the cargo, and but just guarded it. And one batch of it has gone away, has been stolen, and so it is the lieutenant orders him and Crosshair to go and retrieve it. They need a whole battalion to do this because there's a whole bunch of people that actually were responsible for stealing it. But they do discover how they were getting out of there, and then are able to do all but retrieve it because of some pyrotechnics that happen along the way. And then a snow avalanche that nearly kills both of them. And we see, while Crosshair is very much a I follow my orders kind of guy, he ignored the orders of the commander and saves his life to bring him back to the outpost. Unfortunately, once he gets there, nobody cares. And nobody cared about him either. And how it's resolved there is quite out of character for him up to now. But I think that he's come to the understanding that what the rest of the batch was doing was not necessarily the wrong thing to do, because who he's working for does not have any loyalty to him. And loyalty goes both ways. And I think that he's starting to see that. Now, there is one thing that I'm not crazy about. The last couple or maybe 3 episodes of The Bad Batch has been done in very low light. Now, this, of course, is animated, so the lighting is, of course, virtual, but I don't understand. I know they want to make it dark, but why do you bring it down below the ability in some screens to even be able to see what's going on? I differ with that whole idea. I know that it's kind of nice that they're able to do it. It's certainly under the new animation technology. You can do this, but just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should. So that's my thought on that. So plot-wise, both of these shows are very good. Both of them were eye-openers for the main characters featured in the episode. So we hope that you enjoyed that, and hope that you'll stay with us for future reviews. We review, of course, anything Star Wars, anything Star Trek, anything Doctor Who that we can get our hands on. So until next time, don't go far.